Pete, any questions from the chat room?
Yeah, we've got a few. Adam T. Davis asks, what are your favourite or most inspiring action films?
Okay, there's too many to name, but the one, I think if you had to choose one action film, it would be Hard Boiled, directed by John Woo. I don't remember the exact year. I think it came out in 1992 or 93.
That's the one with the baby and the shotgun on the poster.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
The action sequences are incredible. It's sort of a stuntman's dream, but also it's a pretty darn good film in the other respects as well. It does have that Hong Kong melodramatic craziness to it where things maybe go a bit too far for Western taste, but it's very well shot, very well acted, and it's a very slick film. I think one of the critics said, you know, more exciting than a dozen diehards. And even now, I think it holds up really well.
Right.
I mean, we look at the Michael Bay films and stuff, Transformers. I still think a movie that's almost 20 years old.
Right. Still kicks its ass.
Yes.
Any more questions, Pete?
Yeah, DD Opco wants to know, would you like more control over the edits?
Generally, yes. I mean, for me, I don't want to have the final say, necessarily, because I believe that my paymasters, the producers, are the ones that should be most satisfied, and they should be the ones happy. But I do like to get involved in the edit, and some filmmakers are happy to do that. I did a film a couple of years ago in Edinburgh called Newtown Killers, which was directed by Richard Jobson. Richard knows more about camera angles and action than some stunt people I've met in this country. But even he was happy for me to come in to the editing stage and just give my opinion about where we should cut on a couple of the stunts, even changing the speed in post on one of the stunts. I noticed in the final version of the film he hadn't adhered to everything I'd suggested, and I felt good about that, because I felt that he'd heard what I had to say, decided what he liked, and thrown away what he didn't like, and I think that's...
It's not just courteous, it's good sense, isn't it?
It does make sense, but I think people can be quite protectionist
territorial, aren't they?
and territorial,
Yeah.
and I think that's probably a mistake some directors might make on their first feature. But by the time they've got to their fifth feature and they've made mistakes and learned from them, they kind of know it doesn't hurt to have another pair of eyes or another pair of hands. And if it's someone that's very experienced in that field, what's to hurt, you know?
Okay, final question from the chat room.
Yeah, somebody calling them, excuse me, somebody called themselves Slutsy Hoback. Says, what's your most serious injury?
That must be my mother. Actually, touch wood, I'm happy to say that I've been hurt plenty of times in terms of pain and bruises, but I've never seriously been injured.
Right.
So I feel attrition, that, you know, with good preparation, you know, the neck joint hurts, the elbow aches, you know, sometimes in the morning in the winter you feel a bit stiff as you get up, and that kind of thing. But so far I've never had to go to the hospital for anything serious.
Okay,
so
well,
that's how it should
keep
be.
touching that
Maybe
wood.
a final note is that stunt people are not daredevils.
Yeah.
You know, we are like cameramen, like editors. We're in the business of creating an illusion and taking the danger out of it as much as possible.
Okay, well, look, my final question. What advice would you offer an emerging filmmaker? It can be anything. Life advice, movie advice, stunt advice, anything.
If it was stunt advice, I would say reach out. Don't be afraid to ask. Don't restrict what you write on the page until you've talked to a professional, or at least a few professionals, because you may find that that stunt which you think is much too expensive to do, there's a guy that wants to do it for his show reel.
Right, and you were talking earlier about the British Stunt Register. You don't have to go through, you know, the very top tier. There's lots of talented people.
Yeah, I mean, there is a British Stunt Register here, which is affiliated to Equity and various other unions and official boards, but you aren't legally required to use Equity stunt people or Stunt Register people in this country. Most of the best are on that register, and if you're with them, you may well be with the safest pair of hands. But health and safety law says you need to use a competent stunt coordinator, which means somebody who's right for the job. So if you are doing a bit of precision driving, maybe somebody who's a rally driver and has made their living driving with a car out of control is actually the right person legally as well as for your film to execute the stunt.
Okay, so any final piece of advice outside of stunts?
I would just say, you know, hold on to your dream. Don't let people tell you it cannot be done. There are ways to do it, and as I often say to filmmakers, there's 101 different ways to skin a cat. So be open to different ways of telling your story.
Fantastic. Jude, thank you so much for
Thank you.
coming into the production office and sharing with everybody all of your insight.